I expect you know where I am. I'm in Grove Park, which is a public park which gives you a very pleasant introduction as you drive in from the west. It's home to Gore Court Cricket Club and to many other sports clubs.
It belongs to the people of this town and was a gift from George Andrews, who was employed in the brick industry and did very well for himself, rising from barrow boy to managing director and serving 59 years with Smead Dean Company. George was a councillor and served his community well for many years. He wrote a history of Merston and brickmaking. George Andrews had gifted this ground to the people of Sittingbourne and Milton in 1930, and after his death in 1934 it was thought that there should be a memorial to him. So there was a ceremony and an unveiling by his widow here in the park on a sunny Saturday afternoon on July the 3rd, 1937.
Sadly, the memorial seat is no longer here, but I remember it well. It was a pleasant place to sit and watch the park, hang out as they say. I don't think the water fountains, the drinking fountains were working in my day. Just here under this tree is where the memorial stood.
You can see it here behind the tree on the left in what is, I believe, around 1996. One of the tablets from the memorial has since been reinstated on a small brick plinth a few metres away. There was a cricket match in progress that afternoon, and a temporary halt was called for the ceremony to take place. George's son Harold was after all president of Gore Court Cricket Club. It took place in the presence of a large gathering including members and officials of the council and a number of prominent townspeople. Members of both the Sittingbourne and the Milton sections of the local fire brigade, under Chief Officers Peters and Rook, respectively, assisted in the ceremony, forming a guard of honour around the memorial, while a number of Boy Scouts undertook the distribution of the programmes. Proceedings started with the singing of "O God, our help in ages past," followed by a prayer offered by the Vicar of Holy Trinity Church, Sittingbourne, the Reverend J. H. Roundhill. The Chair of Sittingbourne and Milton Urban District Council, Mr. A. L. Baker, spoke. "We are met here today to unveil this memorial to the late Mr. George Andrews, who will be remembered not only for his lifelong connection with one of the principal industries of this district, bringing him into close touch with a very large number of men of all conditions, but for his services given to the public in many capacities. He was a magistrate and a member of the County Council. He was a chairman of the Merston Parish Council from its beginning in 1894 to the time when Merston became part of the Sittingbourne and Milton Urban District Council in 1930, a long period of 36 years. He served on the Board of Guardians and on the Rural District Council. He was also a member of the old Sittingbourne Urban Council and was chairman from 1913 to 1915, taking up that office on the death of his brother, the late J.W. Andrews, during his term of office in September 1913. Mr. Andrews had decided to offer the Urban Council this very beautiful park as a free gift to the inhabitants of the town to mark what was, in his view, a very great event in the town's history in 1930. And in so doing he did not forget the Gore Court Cricket Club. In offering the park to the new Urban Council in 1930, Mr. Andrews had written, "It is generally known that the Gore Court Cricket Club has a long and honourable history, and that it has always given much pleasure to both the players and to the spectators. I have therefore granted to this club the sole use of the portion of the ground which is fenced off, provided they keep the said ground in order and condition." The tablet on the memorial records the acceptance of Mr. Andrews' gift by the Urban Council, added Councillor Baker, who continued, "It is to such a man that we are assembled here today to honour and admire, so far as we are able to express it, in the erection of this memorial, which we hope will stand as a reminder to generations yet to come of the pleasure ensured to them in the use and enjoyment of this beautiful park, by the munificence, generous public spirit and regard for the welfare of the town of one who in his day gave unstinted service to his fellow men. The park itself is the real memorial. making its own appeal to all. "He was truly a most remarkable man," said Councillor Baker, "and it is doubtful whether this district will see his like again." Councillor Baker concluded with a reference to Mr. George Andrews' favourite verse in his book on Merston. "Up and away like the dew of the morning, soaring from earth to its home in the sun. So let me steal away, silently, lovingly, only remembered by what I have done." Councillor Baker then expressed pleasure at the presence of Mrs. George Andrews and called upon her to unveil the memorial. In doing so, Mrs. Andrews said her husband had delighted in seeing people happy, and it was that characteristic, combined with a deep love of nature, that had induced him to secure the beautiful park as a place for the rest and recreation of the inhabitants. Mrs. Andrews then unveiled the memorial, which was draped with the Union Jack, with the words, "In loving memory of my dear husband, and may those who here find recreation and rest be led to think of the great giver of all things." The dedication part of the ceremony was then performed by the Reverend W. Henry Wrigley, Sittingbourne Congregational Minister. Mr. Harry Andrews was then called upon to say a few words, and he expressed the appreciation of himself and the members of the family at the very kind thought and gesture which had resulted in the erection and dedication of the beautiful memorial to his father. "I have been wondering just what the reaction of his own mind would have been to this," added Mr. Andrews. "If it were the wish of his fellow townsmen, who were very dear to him, to perpetuate his memory in any way, I'm sure he would have liked it to have been in connection with the Grove more than anything else." Speaking as the president of the Gore Court Cricket Club, Mr. Harry Andrews expressed his appreciation of the beautiful ground and also paid tribute to Mr. Lashmar, the council architect, who had designed the beautiful memorial and had so placed it in the general surroundings that it added greatly to the beauty of the scene. He expressed his pleasure that the cricket club had fallen into line with his father's earnest desire to observe Sunday in the proper sense, by which I assume that they had agreed not to play on a Sunday on religious grounds. Mr. Andrews concluded by remarking, "The park is ours for our good use. May we be worthy of the giver." The benediction was pronounced by the Reverend J. H. Roundhill, and this was followed by the singing of the national anthem, which brought the ceremony to a close. The memorial had an inscribed plate on either side. Beneath each plate was a seat, and at either end of the memorial was a small drinking fountain, which the Boy Scouts and other boys present wasted no time in trying out. Afterwards, many of those present at the unveiling ceremony enjoyed the rest of the cricket, which was played in delightful weather. At the conclusion of the ceremony, the Sittingbourne section of the fire brigade were called out to Merston, where a fire had broken out in a wash house at Little Merston Farm. A message had come via the Merston post office to the police, who had telephoned the pavilion at the Grove in order to contact the brigade. The brigade rushed off to attend the fire, which was eventually extinguished. The wash house was wrecked, but further damage was prevented.
Thankfully, the park is still here and is still enjoyed by the inhabitants of the town in 2020. That's 90 years after it was given to us.